There is a big new world heading to DC, and I think it's time that we talk about it. I am your host, and this is Embrace Nerd, and without further ado, let's get into it. Yesterday, we received the slate for the new DC lineup going forward, and we didn't know what was going to happen. We didn't know if there was going to be a full reboot, if there wasn't going to be a reboot, and I dropped a video kind of maybe hinting that it was going to be a very substantial reboot with keeping a few different things. To me, it's kind of flipped. To me, it's how would you say? It is a continuation with just a big reboot, which is Superman. In my personal opinion, they could have continued like normal and everything else is the same. We're adding new characters, we're adding new flavor, and so that in itself is a reboot. And there's definitely some compliments that we'll get into in very soon that I want to talk about that I really like. But the main thing that is still speaking to me is that they got rid of Henry Cavill, and to me there was really no need to get rid of Henry Cavill. I think they could have kept Henry Cavill. I think it would have been fine. Maybe I'm wrong. I do understand if you're getting rid of your Batman, maybe you also need to get rid of your Superman as well. Those are the two main faces, and if you have two new faces for those franchises, maybe that's better. But that's my one real negative, and everything else is more about either way. I'm pretty unbiased on most of these things. There's a few that I will admit I have a bias towards, but most of this is going to be either very positive or very open. And so, anyway, without further ado, let's get into it. So, I've been reading a Variety article, and I think we're going to skim through some of this, but I have some pointers that I do want to talk about. And the two, before I kind of put attention to the Variety article, the two things that I would like to bring up is that I find very interesting is, well, first off, let's get our basis here. They're calling the phases chapters. So instead of like a phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, we're going to have a chapter 1, a chapter 2, a chapter 3, which really plays into the idea of a book, really plays into the idea of writing, which is what is something interesting that they talked about when it comes to writing. And it kind of shows that maybe they have, they're really thinking deeply about their plan and are going to try to see their plan through in a really effective way. So, the first thing I wanted to bring up was the fact that their plan is to have 2 series and 2 films per year. So, we'll see other DC things, I'm assuming, like maybe other DC shows. I know Amazon is working on getting the rights to the animated film slate, so any future animated films that DC does, they're looking at that. We could probably see some Elseworld shows like, Young Justice and a few other things. But when it comes to pure DC, and I would say even the Elseworld movies, I hope that's not the case. I hope the Elseworld movies are not counted in this now that I have time to think about that. I really do hope that's not the case. But we'll see. We'll see. But anyway, so they talked about 2 series, 2 films per year. And they talked about the important reason of that is when you try to do way too much, way too fast, you're not actually able to get the good quality that you want out of the things that we as consumers want to watch and enjoy. And so the customer, we want to watch and enjoy. So their viewpoint is that we are only going to do 2 series, 2 films per year, but they've also brought up the fact that they will not start production until the scripts are finished, which I think is really good for two different reasons. One reason is that I think people can remember X-Men Origins Wolverine. Some of the issues with that film, which it's a guilty pleasure film for me, but one of the issues with that film is that they were giving a script like they were writing the scripts for the next day, the day before. They did not have anything planned as they were filming, and they were really filming by the seat of their pants, which I think can be seen in that film. James Gunn says no. Safran says no. We're going to make writers just as important, or maybe even more important, than a lot of the other roles that would be usually placed before them. And we're going to make sure that they are going to be able to finish their scripts. And I think this will do good for two reasons. One, like I said just a second ago, when you're making a film and you're flying by the seat of your pants, that can turn into a disaster really, really quick. The second thing I think that can happen is we can learn from the lessons of Fan Four Stick, which, was Fantastic Four, where they had an agreement on what they wanted to do, and then the studio, started messing with them, changing things, moving things around, and didn't let them, do the plans that they originally agreed on and planned to do. If James Gunn and them are working directly with these writers in an intimate way, that means that the directors that come in, whoever's coming in, has already made agreements. Both sides have made agreements. This is the script. This is what we're doing. This is what we're working on. And then we'll go from there. And I'm sure, they'll be creative enough that if they need to make changes, whatever they can. That said, it's going to be very good for them to be able to, have that ability to have an understanding with each other. Because some of the biggest issues, I think, with DC in the past was Warner Brother meddling. But if everyone is in agreement on what the plan is, the directors, the showrunners, the writers, everything is just going to be able to flow a lot better. And I'm actually okay with it. Now, do I hope we get some more things in the future? Sure. But I do think that 2 series and 2 films are probably a healthy amount per year, and we can go from there for everything else. So, what would be the first film that's going to start this new slate? That's going to be Superman Legacy. Now, the 2 things I thought was interesting. One, I think, even though I hope the 2 film per year thing only deals with DC, U-centric movies, it does seem like maybe in 2025, the only 2 films we're going to get is Batman Part 2, which will be an Elseworld movie, and the Superman Legacy. There was a quote I want to read, and I will pull it up so everybody can see it. And so it says, Safran said during the meeting they had earlier today, I gotta need more RAM. It focuses on Superman balancing his Kryptonian heritage with his human upbringing, Safran said. He is the embodiment of truth, justice, and the American way. He is freedom in a world that thinks of kindness as old-fashioned. And I thought that was a good quote. And something else that got brought up that I do want to hit on. It's clear they want to make this the focus. The one thing I'm still concerned with, though, is it talks about how J.J. Abrams' Bad Robot film that's being written by Ta-Nehisi Coates, which I believe is supposed to be a Clark Kent that is African American. I think it's like based in the 60s. And so I'm assuming during like the civil rights era, and I guess it's supposed to examine if Superman was black during the civil rights era as Clark Kent. It's an Elseworlds movie. Fine, they do what they want. The one thing I will say is I do not understand how Ta-Nehisi Coates, and for those who don't know Ta-Nehisi Coates, he's a writer. He's wrote for like Black Panther, other things like that. And he's wrote for Captain America. He's the one that tried to basically describe Jordan Peterson as a Red Skull. this like classical liberal psychologist guy who's like a genuinely good guy as the Red Skull. This dude is a self-proclaimed Marxist who, from my understanding, talked about how he was happy that the two towers fell. I might be misquoting that, but not the best guy. Not the best guy. And I don't understand how you would have a Marxist guy writing a Superman, a Superman movie. If anything, you would write the next one, which is called The Authority. Which, The Authority, this is what I'll put, let's get into the important thing first. The Authority is going to be what's going to be directly led into after Superman Legacy. Now, you can read the Authority comics, all those different things. They were originally Wildstorm comics. I have a number. Well, it's not the first number one, but I don't know what edition this is. But I'm assuming this is like, one of the other later writers until it got bought by DC. But anyway, this is a number one Authority I have here. I just wanted to show it off because I was like, I got one. It's just not the first one, but whatever. The Authority, though, I will say this. Definitely read the comics if you want to read them. Definitely get acquainted with the characters. I will say, though, that if you want a good hint to what I believe is heading towards us. Now, I think they will adapt an Authority comic book for the Authority movie, but I do think it's going to set up a confrontation between them and Superman. And I do believe that confrontation is going to be directly taking from, I think it's a Mark Millar story, which is Superman versus the Elite, which is like these characters who, take justice in their own hands and do things their own way, and it directly goes against what Superman is for. And so if you have Superman who's for liberty, and then these people think that they can put, force authority on other people, then, I can see that being a pretty messy conflict that, will be pretty cool. The other thing to think about is that these aren't going to be necessarily the best people in the world. They're going to be somewhere in the middle, so it'll either make you really, really like them or really, really not like them. I would say this movie is definitely not going to be for kids. So, if you have some kids and you want them to enjoy this film, that's okay, but just know that it's probably not going to be for them. And this is where I'd put it. It has the opportunity to be very awesome. I think it has an opportunity to be a surprise like the Kingsman, The first Kingsman movie was such a surprise, and it has that opportunity to do that, but it also has the opportunity to go very woke, very fast, and not be very good. And so, especially, when people are more authoritarian than you would, believe nowadays, and either side of the political aisle goes, yeah, I know what you mean, or they're thinking, oh, you don't know what you're talking about. It's the other guys. Exactly. Either way you look at it, there's a lot of people politically who, I'll just say this could be interesting. This could be a total mess. This could be interesting. This could be fantastic. Who knows? But it's definitely not going to be for kids. Just so you know. You're not going to want to take your kids to see The Authority. Then you got Brave and the Bold. Okay. So, Brave and the Bold I'm super excited about, but, the thing that, I'm not going to quote what they said about Damian, but it's accurate, how he's just a little son of a gun, and he's an assassin and a murderer and all these different things. I've heard some people not like the idea of Damian being a 10-year-old kid. But this is what I would say to ease people on the idea of a young Robin as Damian Wayne. 1, I don't believe that Batman's going to have much of a say with what Damian does or doesn't do. He's a dangerous, mother-licking kid, okay? So, there's that. he's also been trained to be an assassin since he was born. We're not dealing with a normal boy. We were dealing with some Spartan-esque kind of raising for this child, okay? So he's not your average child, and they're definitely doing a hit girl kind of thing with Damien. They're definitely going to adapt some of that in there. I don't know how violent it'll go. Hopefully they don't go too crazy, because I do think this would be a good film for families, hopefully. But the one cool thing is, this is not in this article, but the one cool thing is they talk about how they're opening the door for other characters to come in. So Nightwing, Red Hood, Red Robin. Hopefully all those characters get introduced into the DC family. Hopefully they treat those characters correctly and not some of the new stuff that I do not believe has been working, especially with someone like Tim Drake. Hopefully they leave him alone and keep the past 30 years of what that character has been. Keep that, do that, but we will see what actually happens. But I'm definitely excited about it. If there was anything I'm the most excited for, it's probably for Brave and the Bold. I am ready to see a Robin, and I'm assuming what they'll do is they'll start Robin off young, so as he gets older, once he gets to a respected age, they can do a Teen Titans. Now, I have always preferred to see either Dick Grayson or Tim Drake lead a Teen Titans team, but what this could do is Damian has a Teen Titans team, and then maybe down the line we can do a Titans movie or show with Nightwing, and I guess I'd be okay with that. It's just I like my Tim Drake and my Dick Grayson Titans team, so we'll see. But it makes sense that eventually Damian Wayne will lead a Teen Titans group, and starting him young will make sense because we will age with this character. This is a Harry Potter level character, and someone we're going to see as a young guy grow up into his teen years as a lethal force. So, and there's a lot of possibilities we could take with that. So that's cool. The one thing that has me a little worried is Tom King. Tom King is a comic book writer, and he either hits or he slaughters and destroys characters. He loves to just, deconstruct people and deconstruct why you love those characters in the first place. Some of the things he's done to some of these different DC characters, you just can't take them back to what they used to be. Like, to me, he's totally ruined Mr. Terrific. Like, I liked Mr. Terrific, but what he did to Mr. Terrific was unforgivable. Absolutely unforgivable. But he wrote a comic, and to be fair, I have not read it, Superman Woman of Tomorrow, and supposedly people really like it, and James Gunn really liked it. And like I said, it either really hits or it really doesn't. What I've heard is that Supergirl World of Tomorrow is kind of like a True Grit kind of story, and I think we will see Crypto. People were talking about how we may not see Crypto. I think we will see Crypto. If he's in the story, I think James Gunn's the type of person, he could use that as a way to slide in that character. And it's definitely, everybody loves dogs, and, yeah, they'll make that a cute character. And I think it could be a fun movie. I had heard someone say that basically if it's just taking from True Grit and just stealing from True Grit, why make it? And my argument to that would be, well, if you watch, the first Joker movie, they stole from The Taxi Driver, and they made a great Joker film out of it. So there's a lot of people who would maybe never watch True Grit the Western. And so if they're adapting True Grit, what does it really matter that they're doing that? To me, I don't really see the issue there with that. And so I personally have no problem with it. But like I said, I haven't read the story. I don't know if it's good. And I just don't trust Tom King. Tom King loves to deconstruct characters. Now, this might be a needed deconstruction because a lot of times people don't take Supergirl seriously. And maybe at the end of the movie, after we see all her loved ones die and she's the last remaining person and she finally gets to land on Earth, if that happens, maybe all we're going to want to do is give her and Crypto a hug. But hopefully she'll be treated well, and we'll just have to see, we'll just have to see what happens. I don't know. Now, the second thing I'm most excited about is Swamp Thing. I think Swamp Thing is definitely going to be something that's going to be very unique. I do find it interesting that James Gunn brings up the, how they made Groot work in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and, can we do the same thing with Swamp Thing in the DC Universe? I agree. I think it's going to be a lot easier, honestly, than what it was with Groot and maybe Rocket Raccoon. I think there's probably a lot more stories that are established to make that easier. But I also hope the very beginning they do stick with the horror approach. I would love for this to be a straight up horror movie. And then as people get used to the idea of Swamp Thing, the reality is it'll become less scary. And then when it becomes less scary, you just use the Swamp Thing character as that power that doesn't need to be messed with. So when we see him on screen, at first we'll be scared of him, but eventually over the years, as they make either sequels or he appears in other DC Universe stuff, we begin to root for the character because of the mass power that this character has. So that'll be pretty cool. I'm pretty excited about that. I know some people were poo-poo about this next one, which was the Creature Commandos, but for me, I actually think it's a very unique idea. I think, hey, make an animated series with this, see if it works, see what people like, see what people don't like, mix and match, and, eventually you can play these other characters into other movies, other series in the future. I know the Frankenstein character. You can put him in a Justice League Dark movie eventually. Maybe some of these characters that are kind of heroes in the show could be villains in something else in the future, or could be heroes in something else in the future. And I do think James Gunn is right about animation. Now the question is, are you going to make great animation? Are you going to try to be at the scale and the level of something like an anime? I don't know, but if you can level up the quality of animation that you have, don't do, I know, I don't want to get in trouble. I know Rick and Morty and a few of these other things, they do have good animation, but things are drawn in such a way to be cheaper. Okay, we have to admit that. And it's not at that scale that something like anime is at. And so I would love to see plenty of animated features in the future. I would even be down to see like Bat Family animated feature show, different things like that were a part of the universe. That would be pretty cool. And it wouldn't be very difficult to get these actors to come in and voice those characters real quick. It wouldn't be that challenging at all. The next one is Waller. Now, something I want to point out too. The Creature Commandos and Waller are going to come out either right before 2025 or in 2025. They are supposed to premiere before the Superman film. So I thought that was interesting. Yeah, that's what Safran said. He said that they're expected to debut before Superman Legacy. So we will most likely see these either in 2024 or 2025. But basically, if we're being honest with ourselves, this is Peacemaker Season 2, just with Waller being the focus of it. That's what this is. This is Peacemaker Season 2 with Waller as the focus. So, I mean, that's cool. That's going to be good. We'll see. And I think they're giving that time because it really seems like James Gunn wants to write Peacemaker Season 2. And I'll say this too. How interesting is it going to be, that we are going to have someone who writes really well be the one kind of help caretaking for the DC Universe. I find it interesting, and I do think it's going to be really good for DC to have someone like James Gunn who can help navigate these characters through. He can also come in and help these writers. Some of these issues I have with like someone like Tom King, James Gunn can look over Tom King's scripts and hopefully level up the different issues I would have. And maybe help, I would like if Tom King stopped trying to become Alan Moore and maybe would try to become more like James Gunn. And maybe stop trying just to destroy every character he touches. That would be fantastic. If anyone can't tell, I have a little bit of a disagreement or a bias towards Tom King. But I just hate when someone just destroys these comic characters I love just because. It's like you're not putting it back on the shelf for another writer to help carry these characters. And I'm all about heroism. I'm all about these heroes coming in and saving the day. That's why I read comics. That's why I love this medium. And I do feel like people like him have been taking that away from me. So I have a little bit of resentment towards that writer. I cannot help it. But, hopefully someone like James Gunn can help give him those perspectives. And I think one of the reasons I'm so biased towards him is because I know that dude has a good writing skill. I know he's a good writer. And I'm not even saying the things I don't like isn't technically good. I just hate it. I just hate it. Because I hate what he's doing to those characters. But he is a great writer. And I think if he gets away from that, he can write some really great stuff. So, anyway. But going back to this, it has the creator from Doom Patrol. So, I like Doom Patrol, so I think this will be fine. So, we'll see. This might be the thing, either Brave and the Bold's the thing I'm most excited about. This or Swamp Thing, I'm going back and forth on. I think I might be more excited about this than Swamp Thing, which is the Lantern series. Not only, to me, my Green Lanterns is Hal Jordan, Jon Stewart, and I do like Kyle Rayner, but Hal Jordan and Jon Stewart are my Green Lanterns. And Jon Stewart specifically is my Green Lantern, so, that's the one I grew up with. So I definitely think they would have good chemistry with each other. I'm definitely excited to see this. The fact that it's going to be a True Detective-esque kind of story, I think is going to be very, very cool. And the fact that it's also dealing with space. Now, as far as how much things cost, things like that, I am very curious to see what's going to come from this and what they're setting up, because I could see them being ballsy enough to set up one of the big threats that we are going to have to deal with inside that show. The whole chapter is called Gods and Monsters, so we have to ask ourselves, who are the gods, who are the monsters, and maybe who are in between. And I find that very interesting, and so I'm very interested to see, where that goes. And I'm very interested to see when we're going to be getting the casting for these different things that are coming before us. So, the next thing is going to be Paradise Lost. Now, I know a lot of people were kind of poo-pooing on this idea because it's like, wait, it's not going to have Wonder Woman? Why would I watch this? But let me say this, though. I'm not trying to be a DC simp here, and to be honest, it almost feels like it's becoming a DC channel, and I don't necessarily even mean to do that. It's just there's a lot going on in DC right now. But, imagine this. Yeah, they talk about it being like a Game of Thrones-esque kind of story, a lot of maybe betrayal, back and forth, things like that. But not only are you dealing with Amazons, you're dealing with Greek mythology. And so what type of things could be involved with that? We understand who Wonder Woman is basically the daughter of. And, you have the original stories of before they, basically took that idea and gave it to Diana instead of Cassandra, Cassie, Sandsmark? Yeah, Sandsmark. Before they took that idea away from her and gave it to Diana, there was her original origin story. So there's all these different things that they could play with that could give them some Wonder Woman-esque characters to follow. That'd be really cool. You got your Greek mythology and, the whole idea about how they got to be a women-centric thing could go two different ways. It could either go super, super woke, or it could go really, really good. And if it's super, super woke, this show is going to die so fast, it's going to be so embarrassing, and you're just going to make people like Nerdrotic and them a lot of money, as they should make a lot of money because they're good guys. But, yeah, this is not going to go well for you if they go the woke way. But if they handle it a really smart way, it'd be kind of cool. I would love to see something like, what if one of the Amazons gave birth to a boy? What happens if an Amazon gives birth to a boy? And what are the abilities of that boy if that were to happen? What happens if a Zeus or someone impregnates one of the Amazons and they have a boy? That could set up a lot of cool stuff. That could even set up a potential villain for a future, Wonder Woman movie. So I actually think this is kind of a cool idea. So I'm not against it. It's just all going to be about how they handle it. Because the reality is, it can go two different ways. It can either be really good and big surprise, or it can go so woke, so fast, and it will just fizzle away. So, what about the last thing, which is Booster Gold? I am definitely excited about it. We will definitely see what happens. It's a lot it's going to deal with who they cast, but I think this is going to be one of those things that definitely is something I think James Gunn could hit out of the park. I think it's going to probably be funny. It'll probably be good, and it's probably going to be a while. It's probably going to be a while. We're talking about, 1, 2, so these are 24, 25. 6 are, 3, 4 right here. So that'll be 25, 26-ish time. And then you got Booster Gold. So Booster Gold may come out 26, but there's a possibility we're not going to see Booster Gold until 2027. Okay, so we got a while, we got a little bit of time, but I'm assuming what will happen is we'll have Booster Gold and maybe like Peacemaker 2 probably come out that same year. And what I could see happening is, they'll go two different ways. I don't know what they're doing with Ted Kord and Blue Beetle. But, if Ted Kord is alive, if he isn't, if he is, I do see Ted Kord probably popping up in this series. And then eventually they'll come out with a second season, and it'll be called Booster Gold and Blue Beetle. I could be wrong on that, but I do see that as the possible future. So, that's kind of like my deeper thoughts. Now, tell me, guys, in the comments if you want. I am thinking about maybe reading some of the comics that I think that they're going to be adapting these stories from. So we'll see how that goes. But I am tempted to do that. So maybe if y'all want, I can do a different video for every single one of these and talk deeper about it once I've read all those stories and made sure that I'm aware of all of them. And so, guys, let me know if that's something you're interested in or not. There's a lot of stuff going forward. I'm definitely, rooting for him. Definitely rooting for them. I still think the getting rid of Henry Cavill was not needed, but that's just me. But, maybe they'll come up with someone new and unique and will be exciting to watch. So, anyway, guys, this was probably a decently long video, so I'm going to go ahead and end it there. So, anyway, guys, whatever you're doing, wherever you're going, I hope you're having a good one. Peace.